The Cleveland Browns quarterback room just erupted into chaos, and it wasn't because of a bad play or a tough loss. No, this time, the storm came from something far less predictable: brand deals, social media clout, and a single name that has fans, teammates, and executives talking nonstop. Dillon Gabriel, once considered a rising star in Cleveland, found himself blindsided in a way that no stat sheet, no highlight reel, and no on-field performance could have prepared him for. The source of his frustration: Shedeur Sanders, his teammate, the son of an NFL legend, and now, seemingly, the face of the next generation of football marketing. According to insiders, the drama started when Nike extended a personal invitation to Shedeur Sanders to headline their upcoming next-gen football showcase in Los Angeles. This isn't just a minor event, it's a showcase for the league's rising stars, a high-profile stage where brands, media, and fans all get a first look at the future of the NFL. And for Sanders, it wasn't just an invitation, it was validation. His name was trending, his story was everywhere, and his presence was a guarantee of attention. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, who had been expecting the same recognition, got nothing. No call, no post, no personal outreach. Just the realization that he had been left out in the cold while his teammate basked in the spotlight. When the news hit the Browns' locker room, it didn't just sting, it ignited a full-blown meltdown. Sources say Gabriel slammed lockers, paced the room, and muttered angrily about favoritism and unfair treatment. Teammates reportedly tried to calm him, but the tension was already thick in the air, and everyone could feel it. One player described the scene as chaos in slow motion, a mix of frustration, envy, and disbelief, all colliding in the middle of a team that's supposed to be focused on winning games. Meanwhile, Sanders, ever the professional, stayed quiet, scrolling on his phone with a small smile whenever teammates congratulated him. The stakes here go far beyond personal pride. Gabriel's agent had been in talks with Nike for weeks, pushing the narrative of the underdog who clawed his way from walk-on to Heisman finalist to NFL starter. They thought the deal was theirs to claim. Instead, Nike quietly pulled the plug, leaving Gabriel to learn the news the same way the rest of the world did, through an Instagram post showcasing Sanders front and center, draped in custom gear, with a caption that screamed confidence. "The future isn't waiting, it's already here." The optics couldn't have been worse. And yet, this isn't just a story about jealousy or missed endorsements. It's about culture, influence, and the shifting priorities of the NFL itself. In a league where social media presence, marketability, and fan engagement are increasingly valuable, on-field stats can sometimes take a back seat. And in this battle, Shedeur Sanders isn't just winning, he's dominating. Gabriel, talented and hardworking as he may be, is suddenly facing a harsh reality. In the modern NFL, it's not enough to play well, you also have to sell well. If you're enjoying this video and loving the content, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. It really helps us know what you want to see more of. And why keep all the excitement to yourself? Share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who loves NFL drama. This is where the real drama begins, and what happened next inside the Browns' facility would shock fans, reporters, and even the front office. Dillon Gabriel's frustration wasn't just a personal issue, it was a symbol of a larger conflict, one that could reshape the team's locker room, alter relationships, and make everyone question what truly matters in today's NFL. The spark that set off this locker room explosion was simple, yet devastating for Dillon Gabriel. He discovered that Shedeur Sanders, not him, had been handpicked by Nike to headline the next-gen football showcase in Los Angeles, an event designed to highlight the NFL's rising stars. For most players, an invite to something like this would be exciting, even flattering. But for Gabriel, who had been expecting to be the one in the spotlight, it felt like a personal betrayal. Sources say the moment Gabriel saw Sanders' name trending online alongside other NFL elite like Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud, something inside him snapped. Inside the Browns' facility, the reaction was immediate. Gabriel reportedly slammed his locker so hard that teammates flinched. He paced back and forth, muttering under his breath about favoritism and unfair treatment, while others in the room tried desperately to calm him down. One player described the scene as a full-on meltdown, an eruption of frustration that had nothing to do with football and everything to do with recognition, or the lack of it. Everyone could feel the tension in the air, thick and uncomfortable, like it was about to spill over at any moment. Meanwhile, Sanders stayed calm, scrolling on his phone, smiling slightly whenever teammates offered congratulations. The contrast between Gabriel's storm and Sanders' composure was impossible to ignore. What made the situation even worse was that Gabriel's agent had been negotiating with Nike for weeks. They had positioned Gabriel as the underdog story, a walk-on turned Heisman finalist, someone who had clawed his way to a starting role in the NFL. They thought the deal was practically in the bag. Then, without warning, Nike quietly shifted course. No explanation, no heads-up, just a social media post featuring Sanders front and center in custom Nike gear, captioned, "The future isn't waiting, it's already here." For Gabriel, discovering the news this way, the same as the rest of the world, was a brutal blow. Social media erupted almost immediately. Fans flooded X, formerly Twitter, with reactions ranging from mockery to debate. Comments like, "Dillon Gabriel jealous again, Nike wants Shedeur, not you," and "You can't market mid" went viral in hours. Even the Browns' own social media team couldn't contain the backlash. Suddenly, what was supposed to be a quiet off-season moment had turned into a national spectacle, and Gabriel was at the center of it. But this wasn't just about missing out on a brand deal. Nike's decision reflected a bigger picture. Cultural influence now outweighs raw stats. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a marketable figure with social media clout, media appeal, and a growing fan base that transcends football. Gabriel's performance, while solid, didn't carry the same weight outside hardcore football circles. This is the reality that hit him hard in that locker room. Talent alone isn't enough anymore. Recognition, influence, and branding have become just as important as throwing touchdowns or completing passes. And so, what started as a single Instagram post turned into a full-blown conflict. Gabriel's emotions boiled over, the locker room felt the ripple effects, and the stage was set for a clash that went far beyond the field. What happened next would deepen the divide, pulling teammates, coaches, and the front office into a drama they never saw coming, and changing the dynamics of the Browns' quarterback room forever. The moment Nike's post went live, it became clear that this wasn't just a personal slight, it was a statement. Shedeur Sanders wasn't simply being recognized for his athletic ability, he was being positioned as a cultural icon, someone whose influence extended far beyond the football field. Nike's decision made it obvious. In the modern NFL, marketability often outweighs pure performance, and the brand power Shedeur brings is undeniable. Dillon Gabriel had thought he had the edge. His agent had spent weeks building the narrative of the underdog, the self-made star, the Heisman finalist who battled through adversity to earn a starting job in the NFL. Nike had reportedly been in talks with him, considering him for the very same showcase. But instead of being the face of the event, he was blindsided, left scrolling through social media like everyone else, watching Shedeur Sanders dominate headlines and steal the spotlight. According to insiders, that moment was crushing. Gabriel's frustration wasn't just about ego, it was about opportunity, recognition, and the harsh reality of how the league views star power. The reaction inside the locker room reflected the tension perfectly. Sources say Gabriel's packing, slammed lockers, and muttered complaints about favoritism created a palpable divide. Teammates tried to step in, but it was clear that the rift had already formed. Meanwhile, Shedeur remained calm, professional, and collected. Whenever teammates congratulated him, he offered a small, confident smile, keeping his focus firmly on the game while letting the spotlight shine without fanfare. That contrast only added fuel to the fire. Nike's choice wasn't arbitrary. Reports suggest executives wanted quarterbacks who could transcend the game itself, players who could influence culture, attract media attention, and engage fans beyond stats or wins and losses. Shedeur Sanders fits that description perfectly. His social media following rivals some of Hollywood's rising stars. Every move he makes is dissected on talk shows and in sports media. His name alone generates buzz and headlines. Gabriel, though talented and hardworking, doesn't carry the same external appeal. The narrative of the Wakan Heisman finalist is compelling, but it doesn't move product, and in a business where branding is everything, that matters more than most players realize. As the fallout spread, Gabriel's struggles became visible on the practice field. ESPN cameras caught him visibly frustrated, missing throws, and showing uncharacteristic mistakes during drills. Shedeur, by contrast, went about his work with composure, signing autographs for fans, answering questions with calm professionalism, and even dropping a simple yet confident remark about the event. Going to make sure Cleveland's represented right. That line alone, delivered with ease, only heightened the narrative that Gabriel was struggling to keep pace off the field as much as on it. The Nike factor wasn't just about a marketing campaign, it was a cultural shift. It highlighted the growing importance of influence, fan engagement, and social media presence in today's NFL. Gabriel's stats might have been impressive, but in the eyes of the league, the eyes of the media, and the eyes of fans, Shedeur's marketability now had the power to overshadow pure talent. In this high-stakes environment, Gabriel was learning a harsh lesson. Being a great player isn't always enough. And while this was happening, the Browns were left with a dilemma: how to balance talent, team chemistry, and the unavoidable pull of celebrity influence. Because in the NFL today, it's not just about what you do on Sundays. It's about who you are off the field, who can sell jerseys, who can bring attention, and who can become the face of the franchise. For Gabriel, realizing this was just the beginning of a struggle that would shake his career and the entire Browns quarterback room to its core. In the NFL, talent used to speak for itself. A quarterback's stats, his highlight plays, and his win-loss record were supposed to define his career. But for Dillon Gabriel, the wake-up call came harsh and unmistakable. In today's game, stats aren't always enough. Shedeur Sanders, his teammate, was proof. On paper, Gabriel outperformed him. Last season, Gabriel threw for over 4,100 yards with 32 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, completing nearly 68% of his passes. Sanders, by comparison, had slightly lower numbers, around 3,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, and a 65% completion rate. Every serious football analyst could see the numbers clearly. By traditional standards, Gabriel should have been the one commanding attention. Yet the numbers didn't tell the full story. Off the field, Sanders' influence was unmatched. His jersey sales doubled Gabriel's. His social media engagement was 3 times higher, with fans reacting to every post, comment, and photo. When Nike ran internal polls asking which quarterback fans would rather see in a commercial, Sanders won in a landslide. The reality was unavoidable. Gabriel was a skilled player, but Sanders was a brand. And in the modern NFL, brand power has become just as crucial as on-field production.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button.
Gabriel realized this in a very public way. ESPN cameras caught him during practice, clearly rattled, throwing off his usual rhythm and missing throws that normally wouldn't even register as mistakes. Coaches noticed. Beat writers reported Gabriel seemed checked out during drills, barely making eye contact during film review. Meanwhile, Sanders carried himself with calm, professional confidence. He signed autographs, answered questions politely, and even addressed the Nike event with a measured response. "I'm here to play football. Everything else is extra." That statement, simple as it was, emphasized exactly why Nike chose him. He embodied focus, professionalism, and the aura of someone bigger than the game itself. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Gabriel's frustration was rooted not in failure, but in recognition. He had worked tirelessly, built impressive stats, and still found himself eclipsed by the cultural phenomenon that Sanders had become almost overnight. Sources say Gabriel even voiced his discontent privately, pointing out how Brown's social media consistently highlighted Sanders' achievements over his own. Every endorsement, every spotlight, every fan reaction seemed to favor Sanders, and Gabriel struggled to reconcile the discrepancy between effort and attention. This isn't a tale of jealousy for its own sake. It's a lesson in modern sports dynamics. In a league where social media reach, cultural presence, and fan engagement can outweigh statistics, players must navigate more than just the game. Athletic performance is no longer the sole currency. Branding, image, and influence carry weight, shaping careers, team strategy, and even contract negotiations. For Gabriel, the lesson was painful, personal, and unavoidable. Being great on the field no longer guarantees the recognition or the opportunities that talent alone once assured. And as Gabriel wrestled with this reality, the tension in the Browns' quarterback room only deepened. Numbers matter, but influence sells. Performance is critical, but presence dominates. The clash between these two forces, talent and cultural impact, was now front and center, and it was about to ripple through practices, meetings, and even the upcoming Nike event, where the world would watch Sanders shine and Gabriel confront the limits of stats in a modern NFL landscape. Inside the Browns' locker room, the fallout from the Nike drama was impossible to ignore. What started as Gabriel's personal frustration quickly began affecting everyone around him. Sources say the tension was thick, almost tangible, as teammates tried to navigate the awkward divide. Veteran players reportedly rolled their eyes at Gabriel's outburst, calling it immature and disruptive, while younger teammates quietly sympathized, understanding the sting of being overshadowed despite strong performance. It was a classic clash. Experience versus empathy, professionalism versus raw emotion, and statistics versus stardom. Gabriel's frustration wasn't just about a missed opportunity. It was about fairness, recognition, and his place in the pecking order. On paper, his numbers were undeniable. Over 4,100 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, a near 68% completion rate. By every measurable metric, he had outperformed Shedeur Sanders, yet the perception was different. Sanders' cultural influence, social media reach, and brand appeal had turned him into a marketing machine. Jersey sales were double, social media engagement triple, and fan polls consistently favored him over Gabriel. Inside the locker room, the results were visible. Gabriel's frustration painted him as the player struggling to accept a world where influence could outweigh stats. Observers reported that Gabriel seemed emotionally checked out during drills and team meetings. He barely made eye contact with coaches, and his interactions with teammates were strained. ESPN cameras caught him visibly tense, throwing off his usual rhythm during practice, while Sanders remained calm, focused, and professional. He signed autographs for fans, answered questions politely, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that contrasted sharply with Gabriel's visible frustration. Even when asked about the Nike showcase, Sanders' response was measured. "I'm here to play football, everything else is extra." That simple line, delivered with poise, became symbolic of the divide in the room. The split was more than personality, it was generational and philosophical. Veterans criticized Gabriel for letting off-field drama affect his performance. One offensive lineman reportedly told reporters, "We've got real games to win. This Nike drama, that's noise. If Dillon can't handle it, maybe he's not built for this league." Meanwhile, younger players saw the situation differently. They understood what it felt like to have talent overlooked in favor of a bigger name. "Dillon's right to be pissed," one rookie defensive back set off the record. "He threw for over 4,000 yards last season. Shedeur barely cracked 3,200, but Shedeur gets the Nike deal. That's messed up." This divide created a fragile atmosphere, one where team unity was threatened by personal ambition and media scrutiny. The locker room became a microcosm of a broader tension in the NFL, the collision between performance and perception. Gabriel's anger and Sanders' composure were constantly in contrast, fueling whispers and speculation among players and staff alike. Every drill, every team huddle, every conversation became a subtle test of loyalty, patience, and professionalism. And while the Browns worked to maintain focus on the field, the off-field battle had already begun. This wasn't just a locker room quarrel. It was a clash of values, a struggle over identity, and a preview of the challenges that would define the season. In this room divided by recognition, reputation, and raw emotion, everyone knew one thing: the drama between Gabriel and Sanders wasn't fading anytime soon. The tension inside the Browns' locker room couldn't go unnoticed for long. Kevin Stefanski, known for his calm yet firm leadership style, reportedly decided to step in, calling both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders into a private meeting. The goal was simple: restore focus, emphasize team unity, and remind both quarterbacks that football comes first, not off-field drama. But as insiders reveal, what was meant to be a simple intervention quickly became another flashpoint in an already volatile situation. According to sources, Stefanski opened the meeting with a measured reminder that the team's success depended on both quarterbacks keeping their heads in the game. He emphasized that their job was to win games, not chase endorsements, and that locker room chemistry was critical. But Gabriel wasn't receptive. Sources say he immediately cut off Stefanski, accusing the organization of playing favorites and subtly hinting that he might request a trade if things didn't change. He pointed to the Browns' social media strategy, the way Sanders consistently received more promotional attention, and the perceived prioritization of Sanders' schedule and appearances. Shedeur Sanders, meanwhile, remained calm, professional, and unshaken. When Stefanski asked if he had anything to add, Sanders' response was succinct: "I'm here to play football. Everything else is extra." That one line reportedly only fueled Gabriel's frustration further, highlighting the contrast between Sanders' composure and Gabriel's visible agitation. The meeting, which was supposed to mend fences, instead underscored the growing divide, leaving both coaches and ownership in a delicate position. The Browns' front office, sources claim, was acutely aware of the numbers behind the drama. Nike's partnership with Sanders had boosted Cleveland's brand value significantly. Jersey sales surged, merchandise revenue jumped by 40% compared to the previous year, and the team's social media accounts gained over 200,000 new followers in just a month. Internally, staffers reportedly acknowledged that Sanders was doing more for the franchise off the field than most players did on it. Stefanski and ownership faced the uncomfortable truth: the business side of football sometimes overrides traditional notions of merit. For Gabriel, that reality was a bitter pill to swallow. Despite his stats, his work ethic, and his contributions on the field, the league's focus on influence and marketability had left him sidelined, both figuratively and literally. Sources say the quarterback expressed deep frustration at being overshadowed, emphasizing that he had earned his spot through hard work and dedication, not just a famous last name. Yet the optics were undeniable. Sanders' growing celebrity, his professional poise, and the fan engagement he commanded made him the clear frontrunner in both branding and media presence. The meeting ended without a clear resolution. Stefanski reportedly tried to remind Gabriel that football should remain the priority, that stats still mattered, and that leadership meant rising above personal disappointment. But the underlying tension remained. Gabriel was visibly frustrated, Sanders remained composed, and the Browns were left grappling with a situation where personal ambition, brand value, and team unity collided in a very public, very tense way. This intervention, meant to restore order, instead highlighted the complexity of modern NFL dynamics. Talent, influence, and perception now intersect in ways that even the most seasoned coaches must navigate carefully. And as the next-gen football showcase approached, the stakes for both quarterbacks, and for the team, were about to get even higher. For Dillon Gabriel, the lesson was painfully clear. In today's NFL, success isn't measured solely by touchdowns, completion percentages, or highlight reels. It's measured by influence, marketability, and the ability to generate buzz, on and off the field. Shedeur Sanders had become a walking advertisement for this reality. His partnership with Nike, surging jersey sales, and social media dominance weren't just accolades. They were tangible proof of the power of brand in modern football. Gabriel, despite his impressive stats, was beginning to realize that talent alone no longer guarantees recognition, revenue, or respect in a league that increasingly values cultural impact. Inside the Browns organization, the numbers told a story even louder than Gabriel's frustration. Merchandise sales had spiked by 40% compared to the previous year, largely thanks to Sanders' appeal. Jerseys flew off shelves almost as soon as they were stocked, social media engagement tripled, and fan polls consistently favored Sanders over Gabriel for high-profile campaigns. Front office staff, openly acknowledged that Sanders was doing more for the franchise's brand than almost any player on the roster. In a business where dollars matter as much as yards, Sanders had become invaluable. For Gabriel, the reality was bitter. He was competing not just with a teammate, but with a phenomenon that transcended the game itself. The locker room divide became unavoidable. Veteran players, while respecting Gabriel's abilities, reportedly saw his frustration as a distraction. One lineman told reporters, "We've got real games to win. If Dillon can't handle this, maybe he's not built for this league." Younger players, however, saw things differently. They understood the sting of being overshadowed, of having hard work and stats ignored in favor of a bigger name, a flashier brand, or a famous last name. It was a clash not just of personalities, but of priorities. Performance versus perception, effort versus influence. Gabriel's growing dissatisfaction reportedly extended beyond personal resentment. Sources say he hinted at requesting a trade if the spotlight continued to favor Sanders, questioning whether the organization truly valued his contributions. Meanwhile, Sanders remained unshaken, focused purely on football while his brand and marketability continued to rise. His calm professionalism contrasted sharply with Gabriel's visible frustration, highlighting the increasing importance of off-field behavior and media perception in player evaluation. This situation also served as a broader reminder of the NFL's shifting landscape. Teams are no longer judged solely by wins and losses. They are brands, and players are often the driving force behind that brand. A player's influence on merchandise sales, social media engagement, and media attention can carry as much weight as their performance in games. For Gabriel, the lesson was unavoidable. Being a great quarterback isn't enough if the world sees someone else as a star, someone who can sell jerseys, attract sponsorships, and become a cultural icon. As the next-gen football showcase approached, the stakes were higher than ever. Shedeur Sanders was set to headline, cementing his influence, while Gabriel faced the uncomfortable truth that in the modern NFL, off-field presence often overshadows on-field stats. The business reality was clear, unyielding, and unavoidable. Talent may get you to the league, but influence and brand power increasingly determine your place and your legacy once you're there. With the next-gen football showcase just days away, the drama inside the Browns' quarterback room reached a fever pitch. Shedeur Sanders was preparing to step onto one of the league's most visible stages, while Dillon Gabriel faced the uncomfortable reality of watching from the sidelines, both literally during the event and figuratively in the broader narrative of influence versus performance. The stakes were high, not just for personal pride, but for the perception of the Browns' franchise, the locker room dynamic, and the broader conversation about what it takes to thrive in the modern NFL. Sanders, as expected, approached the event with his signature calm confidence. Sources report that he spent his preparation time focused on his role, engaging with the media, building relationships with Nike executives, and fine-tuning his public persona. Every autograph, every handshake, every interaction was deliberate, reinforcing his image as both a rising star on the field and a marketable presence off it. His focus wasn't just about the showcase. It was about solidifying his position as the face of Cleveland's future, and perhaps as one of the most influential young players in the NFL today. Gabriel, in contrast, was reportedly struggling to compartmentalize his frustration. Sources say he continued to express his dissatisfaction with the attention Sanders was receiving, pointing to his own stats and contributions to the team. While he remained professional in public, his private conversations revealed a simmering mix of envy and disbelief. For Gabriel, the next-gen showcase was a reminder of everything he felt he deserved, but didn't receive. The optics couldn't have been clearer. Sanders was shining in front of national attention, while Gabriel's accomplishments were overshadowed by the weight of brand, fame, and media perception. Inside the Browns facility, the locker room remained tense. Teammates reportedly whispered about the dynamics, splitting into factions of support, sympathy, and quiet concern over how the situation might affect team chemistry. Coaches and staff were working to keep players focused on football, but the upcoming showcase loomed large in everyone's minds. It wasn't just an event. It was a cultural litmus test, a moment that would define public perception and potentially influence team morale heading into the season. The next-gen showcase itself promised to be a spectacle. Nike's event was designed to spotlight the league's rising stars, blending athletic performance with media engagement and branding opportunities. For Sanders, this was more than just a press event. It was a statement, a chance to reinforce the narrative of his unstoppable rise. For Gabriel, it was a stark reminder of how influence now competes with performance, and how a single missed opportunity can shift the perception of an entire career. As fans, reporters, and league insiders counted down the days, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Would Gabriel rise above the drama and let his play speak for itself, or would he remain in Sanders' shadow, both on the field and in the media spotlight? The showcase was set to answer that question in very public terms, putting the Browns' quarterback situation under a national microscope and leaving everyone wondering. In a league where brand often outweighs stats, who truly wins and who gets left behind? As the dust begins to settle, one thing becomes painfully clear. The story of Dillon, Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders isn't just about football. It's about the collision of talent, influence, and perception in the modern NFL. Gabriel, a quarterback with undeniable skill and impressive stats, is coming face-to-face with a reality he hadn't fully grasped. In today's game, success isn't defined solely by performance on the field. Brand power, cultural influence, and fan engagement have become just as critical, if not more so, in shaping a player's career trajectory. For Shedeur Sanders, the message couldn't be clearer. His Nike deal, skyrocketing jersey sales, and social media dominance have positioned him as a figure whose impact extends far beyond touchdowns or passing yards. He embodies the modern athlete, a blend of talent, charisma, and marketability that commands attention from fans, media, and brands alike. Every move he makes off the field amplifies his value on it, reinforcing the narrative that influence now carries its own weight in the NFL hierarchy. His calm, professional approach only underscores his maturity, highlighting why executives, sponsors, and even teammates gravitate toward him as a centerpiece for the league's future. Gabriel, on the other hand, faces a crossroads. He has the skills, the work ethic, and the football IQ to succeed at the highest level, but his struggle with recognition and branding has put him in uncharted territory. The locker room tension, the private frustrations, and the looming spotlight of events like the next-gen football showcase all serve as reminders that, in the modern NFL, talent alone no longer guarantees a spotlight. Gabriel's journey is a lesson in adaptation. Navigating the interplay between performance and perception, understanding the business side of the sport, and learning how to balance personal pride with team goals. The Browns themselves are caught in a difficult position. Balancing two talented quarterbacks while managing the optics of fame, endorsements, and media attention is no easy task. Coaches like Kevin Stefanski must navigate delicate locker room dynamics, trying to maintain unity while acknowledging the realities of branding and marketability. The front office must weigh performance against influence, knowing that players like Sanders can bring significant financial and cultural value to the franchise. Every decision they make now carries weight far beyond the field, affecting morale, team chemistry, and public perception. Ultimately, this saga highlights a larger truth about professional sports today. The game is no longer played solely on turf. It's played in the headlines, across social media, and in the boardrooms of major brands. Athletes must master not only their sport but also their public image, their influence, and their ability to navigate the attention economy that surrounds them. For Gabriel and Sanders, this dynamic will define not just the next season, but potentially the next decade of their careers. As fans, we watch with anticipation, curiosity, and a hint of awe. Will Dillon Gabriel rise above the shadow, reclaim his narrative, and prove that talent can still triumph over perception? Or will Shedeur Sanders continue to dominate, proving that in the modern NFL, influence and brand power often carry more weight than stats alone? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is clear. The Browns' quarterback saga is far from over, and the next chapter promises to be just as dramatic, compelling, and unforgettable as everything that's come before.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.